Shalom, Yahawah, Shalom. All praises to the Most High, Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi. I want to start off with this verse. This is 1 Thessalonians 5:5. It says, "Ye are all the children of the light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of the darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober." And y'all know, based off the title, this video is speaking about Iran. And I wanted to go through some of my old posts from that first conflict they had. It was a 12-day war where essentially Israel launched missiles at Iran. Iran retaliated. They fought for about 12 days. And then essentially America decided to go in. They dropped, I think it was U-2 bombers or stealth bombers to try to destroy Iran's nuclear potentialities, right? And I was posting it on my page because we thought it might be full-blown war, but it turns out it was only like a 12-day thing, right? And I posted this. I said, this is the 2020 version of the Iraq war. It's not about terrorism. It ain't about religion. Ironically enough, there's some aspects of religion in this war that we'll get into probably in a different video. So it ain't about nukes. It says they want to topple the Iranian government, set up a proxy government, and extract Iranians' resources. The U.S. empire has been wanting to do this for decades. And as I've done more studying on, the beef between Iran, America, Israel, America has had its sights set on Iran since 1980s, whenever they essentially took out the old regime that America was backing. It was an authoritarian regime that people within Iran hated. And they knew that Iran was a big threat. And there's some great videos from this guy. I forgot his name. Oh, you can see right here. Predictive History. I've been binge watching a lot of his videos, and he goes into the history of, these conflicts, the beef, the tension, and a lot of the strategies of the war. But essentially my point was, this is going to be a dragged out war, full of lies, full of miscommunication. And honestly, this war is going to be a setback for America. I didn't want to make this video when war first broke out because I didn't know exactly how things were going to move and play out. But, after these weeks have gone by, there's been a pattern, and I wanted to really get into it so y'all brothers can understand, because I guarantee y'all brothers seen videos of brothers saying World War III just broke out. A lot of that is shock value. You have to understand, when it comes to prophecy, it's not, event 1 happened, then event 2 happened, then event 3 happened, and boom, prophecy fulfilled. There's a lot of waxing and waning. I remember brothers in 2022 was saying that Russia invaded Ukraine, World War III is about to break out in 2022, 2023. Fast forward, it's 2026. The Most High's vision is always going to happen, but it happens in stages. You have moments where things heat up, then they cool off, then they heat up, then they cool off. But they still traject towards where the Most High wants them to go. And y'all brothers have to stay vigilant, because you don't want to get into this hyper mode where you think the end is tomorrow. You lose faith because you think, this ain't serious, when essentially the Most High is still moving it down the road that he wants to move it. But this is my point. This war, I believe, is going to essentially be a long, drawn out war, and there's going to be a lot of implications on it. And there's been a pattern of this war that's been happening, right? So I wanted to keep going because essentially, a lot of stuff happened with Trump and they were saying what they were saying. But let's go into this pattern, because this is showing us how the war is going to keep progressing. So this is something that was posted in January. People started to see a lot of stuff in regards to Iran. Iran had a lot of protests amongst the people within their country. And I don't know if y'all are on Threads, if you're on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, but a lot of people were saying how we need to free the people. We need to free the people from Iran. There's a lot of stuff going on, and the government is oppressing the people. Remember, you always see the same pattern with Iraq. I don't know about Afghanistan, but for sure Iraq, Venezuela, Libya. I think Syria. I think Syria as well. It's always, this government is terrible. This government doesn't want freedom. It's oppressing the people, because it builds a pretext for them to go in because they have an agenda. You see what I'm saying? And many times what the devil likes to do is he likes to put agents in certain factions within a country to try to infiltrate and cause I forgot the right word, but derisions and sedations amongst the people, so that way they can revolt from the inside. That way America doesn't have to send troops. It doesn't have to spend money on bombs. It doesn't have to have a lot of the negative implications of trying to attack and invade a country. They oftentimes will try to do this. Even the scripture says a nation divided against itself cannot stand. So there was a lot of propaganda going on that Iran's government was oppressing the people. I don't know what happened in Iran. I'm not there. I can't say, but I understand there's a lot of lies that the Western governments like to play on the people. So if I'm not there, I don't know what's happening. It's likely that there have been people who've been oppressed, but how do I know? Especially with AI and all these fake bots and stuff, there's no way for me to fully tell, right? But essentially, this has all been leading up to it. And Trump, that's why you heard Trump saying, oh, you know, you people, you guys need to revolt, topple the government, because he was trying to get pressure that they would topple the government and then America could just go in, bomb, you know, the military bases and things like that, and then come in and take over the country, because they know that Iran is not Venezuela, and this is going to be a much harder battle for them if they want to win this, right? Then obviously we had Trump sending over ships because he was trying to threaten them, see if they would be willing to, you know, listen to their demands, and if not, essentially he was going to invade. Until finally right here, y'all see Trump appears ready to attack Iran as U.S. strike forces take shape. And this is the guy that I've been watching who's really speaking on the war with Iran and how things can lead up to it, right? So now the main thing we have to understand is this. It's Matthew 24:6. It says, you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So there has to be continued conflicts between nations, because that is the spirit of prophecy at play. Let's keep going. It says, verse 7, for nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in diverse places. So you can't expect a return of Yahawashi if his words aren't fully fulfilled. You see? So there has to be a lot of these smaller conflicts that bleed into bigger conflicts. So essentially, this is just the next step. This is the next aspect of prophecy. And the reason why this is very interesting is because America is going blow for blow with Iran. And America's in a very weird spot right now. Let's go to actually Revelation chapter 12. This is Revelation 12:12. It says, therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And we understand that the earth is in the hands of the wicked. We understand that the European nations, America, and many other wicked rulers are in charge right now. And they are essentially the prime movers of the earth. So America knows that its time is getting short, and that essentially it has to come down and protect its assets, protect its countries, because the end of it is near. Now we understand as well that there's going to be a final beast, a final kingdom that's going to be set up once this hegemony falters. But this has to happen to bring in political instability, currency instability, financial instability. And once these different events happen and people start to lose trust and lose faith in American hegemony, that is when that system is going to be built up, because right now the world is being divided into different sects. United Nations isn't as strong. American leadership isn't as strong, but they have a strong military. So if the powers that be and if these other nations see that America's military might isn't as strong as what they thought it was through a drawn out war with a country who doesn't have nearly as many technological capabilities, and America's being shown to, oh, we're going to bomb you to oblivion. We're going to conquer you because we killed your leader. But it doesn't kill the spirits of the Iranians. Then who looks at that? China looks at that. Russia looks at that. The other Arabian countries look at that. Europe looks at that. And their faith in America being this great ruler, the whore of Babylon being this great ruler, there's chinks in armors until essentially it leads into their collapse, because America has its empire through these other nations continuing to prop it up through its dollar, through its political system, through the petrodollar, things like that, through its military might, that if there are more and more chinks, the pride of America goes down, and then judgment is going to come quicker and quicker. Let's get some scriptures on that. So this is the book of Jeremiah 50:31. It says, behold, I am against you, O thou most proud, saith the Most High Yahawah of hosts, for thy day is come, the time that I will visit thee. So one of the characteristics of the spirit of a Babylonian empire, because this is speaking of ancient Babylon, but we know America to be modern day Babylon. They're going to have a lot of pride. You see it all the way on YouTube, people saying Iran can never deal with the capabilities of America. They can never deal with the capabilities of the U.S. military. We're going to win this war. But the thing you need to understand is that Iran is not trying to fight a mano-a-mano war. Iran is actually doing what's called asymmetry. They're trying to fight the war on their terms. So what's happening right now, we'll get this specific video real quick. Right now, it says the cost of war no one is talking about, because essentially Iran, they want to drag out this war. They want to make this war extremely expensive and extremely painful for the Americans, the Western nations who rely on America, even the other countries around Iran, like the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait. I think Qatar is one of them as well. And this is kind of explaining what's going on right now.
It's day 5 of the war between Iran and United States and the Israel coalition, and it's already become one of attrition. The outcome and duration of the war in the Middle East may be decided by a grim calculus based on the size of Iran's drone and missile stocks versus the vital air defense munitions held by the United States, Israel, and their Gulf allies. Since the war began, Tehran has responded with repeated waves of drone swarms, missiles aimed at US bases across the Arab world and in mainland Israel. Iran has launched hundreds of projectiles, including cruise missiles and Shahed series drones across the region. On the defensive side, US and allied forces have relied heavily on high-end missile defense systems like the Patriot or the THAAD interceptors to shoot down these incoming threats. These systems are effective. Interception rates are set to exceed 90% in many engagements, but each shot comes at a steep price. It depletes limited inventories. This has turned much of the conflict into what experts call an attritional salvo competition, a race to expend fewer resources than the opponent.
So essentially, it's like a boxer. If y'all brothers study boxing, America is like Mike Tyson. Crazy uppercut. You try to go blow for blow with them in the pocket, you're going to get your ass whooped. So Iran, they're essentially trying to bleed out American supplies, bleed out American public approval, bleed out the American economy by having them send these huge, expensive missiles that continue to increase the debt, continue to increase the amount of funding it costs to wage this war, so that either they'll back out or they'll have a lot of economic instability, and people are going to be wondering why we're fighting the war, because this is completely different from 2001 with the Taliban. The vast majority of people don't even care or didn't even want America to invade Iran. The vast majority of Americans didn't support Israel. The vast majority of Americans are tired of war and realize that we're in economic instability. And what I mean by that is, it's not that we don't have jobs and things like that, but it's very clear that the economy is going down with AI, with diminishing dollar, with inflation, with more political unrest, that they don't want to be fighting another war, especially when you have a man who just said, let's make America great again. I'm going to prevent World War III. I'm going to essentially make sure we're focused on America first and not getting caught up in all these foreign wars. This man's been in office, about 14 months, and all of his promises have been utter bullshit. So they understand that the way America's strategy is, they're not going to have approval and a long-term stability to continue to fight this war like they did in Iraq, like they did in Afghanistan. So they're just trying to bleed out the American supply line and make this a very painful war to fight, because they know that they're not going to go toe-to-toe with the best military on earth. You see what I'm saying?
One of the defining features of this conflict has been the economic and production imbalance between the offensive and defensive weapons. Cheap Iranian drones versus the $1 million American interceptor missiles. The Shahed 136 are 3.5 meters long. They have a wingspan of 2.5 meters. They're relatively slow, but they can carry an explosive payload of about 50 kilograms. That's enough to damage a skyscraper, not just enough to bring it down. Their range is as much as 2,000 kilometers and they're typically pre-programmed on complex flight paths, traveling low above ground to try to evade radar detection. The relatively low cost and ease of manufacture, particularly compared with a ballistic missile, means that these drones are more likely to remain a feature of this conflict for some time now.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna go through all that, but y'all kind of understand the strategy. And one thing you have to understand too, you can't take at face value the Western propaganda. Because when you turn on your phone, you look on Apple News, it's gonna say America's destroying Tehran, and they're messing them up with bombs. I'm not denying that, but there is equal damage. Iran isn't trying to pummel these other nations. They're just trying to attack critical infrastructure, oil fields. They're trying to make this a very costly war, and they're just trying to hunker down and endure, even though America and Israel are bombing the crap out of their cities in Iran, because that's what they want to do. They want to continue to bomb, put the pressure, so that way the people will revolt. But they realize that the people of Iran are coming together. Even though they killed their supreme leader, the sun came, and they're still fighting. And boom, it's been 2 weeks now. So this is going to be a drag down fight, which is more than likely going to lead to the U.S. trying to invade Iran, which is what Iran wants. And there's a great video by that guy I showed you, Predictive History. You can look up the video. It's the Iran war trap, and then I think it's the war of asymmetry. Now that guy, I don't think he's 100% like non-biased, but many of the points he makes completely go against the United States propaganda and perspective, and it puts things in the proper context, because the Most High is going to give America a very humbling defeat that's going to topple the empire. It's always happened throughout history, brothers. This is no different. So this is another video, and this is like some AI robot dude, but the way that he speaks on it, it explains the specifics of the war.
And if the Iranian state survives this war, it won, but of course, it has other goals it would like to accomplish as well. Now, with that said, let's talk more about the problems that the US military is facing in this war of aggression it's waging against Iran. Bloomberg pointed out that US strike planners are unlikely to have moved enough munition to the region to continue striking Iran for 4 weeks. Trump estimated the war could go on for 4 or 5 weeks, although he said it could go on much longer. But the US is going to very quickly run out of munitions. Foreign Policy magazine published a very interesting article analyzing this problem, and it noted that in the first 36 hours of this war, the US and its allies consumed more than 3,000 munitions. The article noted that Iran is pursuing an asymmetric war of attrition focused on exhausting US, Israeli, and allied defensive resources. This is what I've been talking about for several minutes here. And this is the really important quote. It noted that while the interceptions have been largely successful, they are very costly. The expended munitions and the minerals required to build them are a defense industrial problem for the West, and especially the United States. Because over the past several decades, in the era of neoliberal capitalism, the US deindustrialized. Capitalists stopped investing in domestic manufacturing, they outsourced the supply chain, and instead they focused on the most profitable, high value added industries, which were in services and intellectual property development and software and finance. So this is a major problem, not only for the US economy, the Rust Belt being left behind and all of this, but deindustrialization is also a problem for the US empire, because the US military industrial complex needs to actually manufacture the weapons for these wars of aggression.
So the thing you have to understand is that if they're lacking a lot of manufacturing because they really don't have much left in America, essentially they're going to have to buy their weapons from other places who are manufacturing it, a lot of which come from their direct enemies like China, right? But the biggest thing that you guys need to know is that it's going to be hard for them to wage long-term wars. So they have to attack quickly. But like I said, with Iran, they're prepared for this. They've been waiting on this for decades. They've been waiting on America to come and invade them. And they've been coming up with these new technologies to be able to counteract what America typically likes to do because it has a technological and a military advantage.
This foreign policy article noted that yes, the US government can provide all kinds of emergency supplemental funding. However, the US cannot instantly reverse decades of consolidated production lines and atrophied mineral processing capacity. You can't just reverse deindustrialization by throwing money at it. This is going to take years, if not decades, and I'm still very skeptical as to whether it actually will be accomplished. This foreign policy article also warned that US missiles are being expended faster than they can be replaced.
And that's where you have all those drones, because one drone, one missile. It's asymmetry. It's not a symmetrical 1 million, 1 million. It's 10,000 against 2 million. You see? So that's how America's gonna crash and burn, being this huge global power. They're already overextended with debt, with inflation, with trying to manage all these different countries across, the 6 continents. So, as they continue to exhaust a lot of their supplies, that leaves opportunities in other areas. Y'all thinking about the next one that's probably gonna happen? China and Taiwan. You see, so China's not trying to come in right now. Russia's not trying to come in right now. They're just waiting and seeing. That way they have other opportunities, allow America to exhaust itself, and then come in whenever they feel ready to do what they need to do. So as y'all brothers been seeing, if y'all drive trucks especially, price of oil is going crazy. So again, Iran is essentially trying to make this a very expensive war, and the economy is gonna pay for it, right? I think where I'm at in Texas, I think gas went up like $1 in 1 week. I think it's up like 125. I don't drive, so I haven't really been paying too much attention, but I think gas like $3.50. I know brothers in Cali was like $4.70, almost $5. And y'all understand gas and oil, it's a prime mover of our economy. But let's look at this and then we'll see the impact of it.
هرچه سریعتر آمریکای جنایتکار و رژیم وحشی صهیونیستی را از چنین اقدامات بزدلانه ضد بشری برحذر دارند تا شعله‌های آتش و جنگ بیش از این گسترش نیابد. در غیر این صورت اقدامات مشابهی در منطقه صورت خواهد گرفت و اگر تحمل نفت بیش از بشکه‌ای $200 را دارید این بازی را ادامه دهید.
So basically he's saying, if Iran and Israel want to continue this, we're going to make sure that gas prices per oil gallon or a barrel of oil is over $200. Let's look up what the highest barrel of oil was in history. So right here it says the highest price of crude oil in history occurred in July 2008 when it surged to a record peak of $147 to $150. Driven by massive demand, speculative trading, and geopolitical tensions, oil prices reached this peak before falling later that year. Now let's look at some other times, right? You have March 2022. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Brent crude reached $139. Now let's look at where it's at right now. Okay, so right now I think it's kind of gone down a little bit, because I think a couple of days ago it was at 110. So right now it's at about $97, $98. So we'll see whether or not oil will get up to that. But that's essentially what Iran is trying to do. Iran is trying to make oil extremely expensive. That's why they went to Venezuela. That's why America is trying to find other means of providing that oil. And that's why Russia as well, they limited or they uplifted some of the sanctions on Russia, because they know they need that oil in order to continue to fight this war. Because if the oil continues to go up, the price of goods is going to go up, the price of cost of everything is going to go up, and that's going to cause a lot of economic pressure, and America can't have that. But Iran's going to continue to try to attack America because they're trying to allow them to continue to go down. This is 2 Ezra chapter 15 and 14. It says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth near, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hand. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another, and they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their action shall stand in their power." So essentially, the way that the world is moving and those who are on this earth, There's going to be a lot of swords. There's going to be a lot of killing. There's going to be a lot of death. There's going to be a lot of destruction. And there's going to continue to be differences between different nations and different peoples. And it's eventually going to lead to a state in which people aren't going to regard the people who are in rulership, the presidents, the call them a dictator, the prime minister. And that's why we're seeing a lot of things with AI and Palantir about how the US government and obviously China and other governments are taking a lot of this data from AI to be able to categorize and track Americans, because they understand how they want this society to go, how they want their rulership to go. It's going to become more authoritarian, more limiting of freedoms, and they understand that there's going to be a lot of unruliness amongst the people who they like to call their chattel. And this is the last thing I wanted to get. It says, worst nightmare, anger, and frustration as the Gulf states bear brunt of war they did not start. It says the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which is the checkpoint that 20% of the world's oil supply goes through. It says that closure puts pressure on the region's economies amid growing resentment about the conflict started by the U.S. and Israel. I'm not going to read all of it, but we'll just go right here. It says, an eerie quiet hangs over Ras Al Khaimah's industrial port, usually thriving in the United Arab Emirates. Now ships stand docked in silence. So essentially, because the oil is not going out, because every ship is being under threat and under a potential attack from Iranian drones and missiles, they're basically holding their oil at port, and they're not able to make money. Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, cities like that, Kuwait, countries like that, they're not able to make their money. That's how they get rich with these Arabian countries. So I'm gonna go right here. On Saturday, Fujairah, the UAE's main oil port on its east coast, was targeted by a drone attack. Thick black smoke seen billowing from its terminal. It is one of the many consequences facing Gulf states as they are pulled deeper into a war they did not start and had diplomatically tried to prevent. For decades, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and Oman have allowed U.S. military bases, infrastructure, access on their soil, and have been among the largest buyers of American weapons and tech. In return, the U.S. has stood as the Gulf's closest and most significant military partner and protector. And what's really happening is that these countries are on the side of America. They're like vassal states. Many of these countries are just vassal states to a lot of the European and obviously the American elite, because they benefit off of the whore of Babylon and her empire, because the whore of Babylon, America, uses these countries to try to suppress Iran. They do that, and as well as a way for Israel to have an ally in the event that some of these other countries try to attack them. So they're in bed with one another. So essentially, because Iran is at war with Israel and America, they're attacking a lot of these bases that the United States has in these countries, as well as they're even attacking some of their oil infrastructure. It says the UAE and GCC tried to stop the United States from declaring this war because they know the implications. He pointed to the threats made by Iran's foreign minister months earlier about the closure of the strait. Now the exact scenario is playing out. The asymmetry of the Gulf's military partnership with the U.S. has never been more stark. It was only in September that Israel carried out an airstrike on Qatar, another U.S. Gulf ally, which did not prompt any substantive action from Washington. The most fundamental question is one of consolation. Are the Gulf states actually achieving the partnership and security support they feel is necessary if the U.S. is going to engage in military in the region? And I'll end it on this. It says, this is the Gulf's worst nightmare, says Sanam Vakil, the director of the Middle East and North Africa program at Chatham House. There's deep anger and frustration at the U.S. because this is not their war, and yet they're bearing the brunt. Vakil says Gulf states have long pursued a security partnership with the U.S. similar to the one enjoyed by Israel, but I now realize that may never happen. Yet for all the recognition of the need to diversify their security partners, she adds the Gulf currently has no alternative as its ultimate protector. So essentially, many of these different countries, from Saudi Arabia to UAE, Yemen, I don't know about Yemen, but Qatar, Kuwait, a lot of them are feeling the brunt of being brought into this war from allowing the U.S. to use their bait to build bases and bomb Iran, and it's basically affecting them very badly. So what may potentially happen is that many of them are going to have a growing resentment, not only towards America, but also towards Israel. And when y'all brothers understand some of the reports coming out about what is being told to the U.S. soldiers about why they're fighting this war, a lot of them thinking that they're going to bring the return of quote unquote Jesus Christ, which y'all brothers know is Yahawashi, is going to make things a lot more interesting. But I don't want to cover everything in one video, so more than likely I'll do that at a later time. But there's a lot of things going on, brothers. There's a lot of stuff happening in the world. Again, the importance of making sure that we stay vigilant, because things is continuing to heat up. It's easy for us being in a land that haven't been attacked in who knows how long, like legitimately attacked. I'm not talking about Pearl Harbor. I'm talking about a legitimate attack on our soil from a foreign power. Who knows how long it's been. But things are starting to play out and continue to move. The Most High is continuing to allow prophecy to be fulfilled. And that's why we got to constantly endure. And the most important thing is that as these birthing pains start to get more clear and more painful, we have to be prepared to deal with whatever may come with it, whether that's economic instability, job loss, not being able to afford many of the victuals that allowed us to live a somewhat comfortable life. Because people in Iran, people in these other countries, let me tell you, bro, they're going through hell. And that's how it is to really live through war. We haven't seen that yet. But as y'all know with prophecy, that is going to be the Most High's will in the future. So Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I give all praises to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Until next time, Mr. Brother Ash Ibad signing out.